During America's Second Industrial Revolution, Waukegan, Illinois commenced the Elgin, Joliet, and Eastern Railroad to pass through the town. Shortly after, Waukegan grew into a thriving industrial city with a wire mill, sugar refinery, leather tannery, and other industries. One of these industries was Johns Manville. It was believed to have been brought here because of the railroads, but an additional reason was because of the lakefront that provided an easy access to water usage into the factory.
Johns Manville was composed of 3 different divisions, one of those being the Industrial Product Division, where the refractory fiber products were made. The second division was the Pipe Division, which was a major producer of transite pipe used for irrigation, pressure and sewer pipes, and industrial venting. The last being the Building Material Manufacturing Division, which produced organic and fiberglass shingles.
As the United States found itself involved in World War II, Manville, in addition to making products essential to the war, offered a college scholarship as an incentive to their female workers. Elizabeth Betsy Ellman, one of the corporation's former workers, started at Johns Manville in the year 1942. She was sent to work at the factory in the quality control lab 2 times a week, while attending Lake Forest College 3 times a week. Many of the things that Betsy would have to do at her job consisted of working with harmful chemicals.
Well, the jobs that I did in the lab, nobody would be allowed to do today, the way we did them.
How did you do them, and what did you do?
Well, for one thing, when they made the insulation for the Navy ships, and it was an insulation that you had to mix and put on the boilers, and I tested that. And what they did was they'd bring me the stuff over from the mill, and I would mix it and make a cake, and that would be baked. And then they would, when that was dry, they would cut off the coating, and cut it into 1-inch blocks. And I would have 100 little 1-inch blocks of asbestos, and 100 little wooden blocks. Put them in a tumbler, tumble, sift everything out, see how little they'd gotten, put them back in, tumble again, and tumble them until they disintegrated to see how long this insulation would last. And then I would be covered with asbestos.
Manville continued to flourish after World War II, and the city of Waukegan enjoyed its relationship with the large industry that was one of the biggest employers of the city. As reports began to surface about the dangers of asbestos, Manville adjusted some safety procedures, but largely failed to help their workers. Instead, they continued to heavily advertise their company, products, and changed their name to Johns Manville Corporation, in hopes to deflect attention from the asbestos controversy.
Considering Manville's troubled history with asbestos has led many to assume that there must have been very little that was good about the corporation. The company, however, boosted the community economically due to the high numbers of employees it had. Going along with this, Johns Manville also went out of their way to invest in a lounge specifically designed to entertain their employees. This lounge was open to workers, their families, and anyone else they wanted to bring. With this lounge came bowling teams, baseball teams, company celebrations, and just an overall sense of family.
Without asbestos, Johns Manville would not have been operating, leaving all their employees out of work. However, the situation inside the factory was incredibly dangerous for its workers, causing different symptoms such as difficulties breathing, mesothelioma, and ultimately death.
I burned all the skin off my fingers, stirring little beakers of acid on a hot plate, and my hands got all ruined and stuff like that you would not do today. But in 1943, 1944, there was no rules.
Effective protection could have been distributed to the employees, but due to the time period and lack of knowledge on the subject, proper measures were not taken.
Since the 1970s, the company was faced with thousands of smaller lawsuits, but none were as detrimental to the corporation as one of their more recent cases. In recent years, the company was faced with a $3.4 million lawsuit. A San Francisco jury ruled in favor of the deceased Richard Worthley Sr.'s family, a former worker from the Johns Manville factory in Waukegan. However, not everyone was compensated by the company. Many of the victims close to death due to the asbestos given off by the Waukegan Johns Manville plant still have not received any reimbursement. The Manville Corporation took great steps to ensure that negative medical studies revealing dangers of asbestos would be followed by studies that Manville funded that showed inconclusive findings. Not only was the company losing money to lawsuits, Johns Manville was also hit with strings of fires, ending in damages costing up to $4 million throughout its years of operation.
In 1987, in addition to the growing numbers of lawsuits connected to the asbestos-related illnesses, Johns Manville was fined with a $4.1 million lawsuit from the EPA, otherwise known as the Environmental Protection Agency, in order to ensure that they would clean up the asbestos-filled lakefront. This project was estimated to take around 2 years to complete.
Sadly, in the year 1992, Johns Manville had to permanently shut its stores in Waukegan when the lawsuit and pollution costs got too high, resulting in the company having to file bankruptcy. Although this left hundreds of people out of work and a hole in the community economically, overall, the people of Waukegan try to look at the positive opportunities now that the corporation was gone. The city tried to focus on the pollution Manville left behind.
In the year 2017, the factory building has long been demolished and the land is now abandoned. The grounds that used to house the factory are now one of 3 EPA Superfund sites in Waukegan. A Superfund site is any land in the United States that has been contaminated by hazardous waste and identified by the EPA as a candidate for cleanup because it is a risk to human health and/or the environment.
This didn't stop the Waukegan Park District from trying to take advantage of this open space. In the year 2000, the Park District came up with the proposal of using this land as a spot for their new sports park, which would consist of soccer fields, baseball and softball diamonds, as well as an area for young children to play. However, this idea was shot down when the land could not reach the EPA's health guidelines, forcing the sports park to be moved to its current site on Green Bay Road, which leaves the former Johns Manville site still in limbo. The Johns Manville Corporation has ultimate responsibility regarding reuse of the site. Someone who is trying to get this land out of its limbo stage is David Villalobos, the 4th Ward Alderman of Waukegan. Villalobos is involved in the Clean Power Lake County campaign. This campaign is striving to clean Waukegan and Lake County as a whole. He believes that the former Johns Manville site should be converted into many things, such as open space for residents to use, a park, store kiosks, and with this make a road that goes further into the site. His campaign will be suggesting this along with putting forth efforts to get the land up to the EPA regulations.
We've moved along in 3.5 years with that. I'm an advocate on city council. We have Sam Cunningham who supports it, who's running for mayor. We have Lisa May who supports it, running for mayor. We have our current mayor, Wayne Motley, at least addressing it now. We've made some big steps municipally. So in terms of taking a stance, I would say no. It's taken prior to this past 3 years, no, absolutely not.
Though Waukegan has faced many obstacles throughout the years, it has not been able to take a stand in regards of the Johns Manville factory. Johns Manville has been shut down for decades and even demolished. Pollution is still present on the sites shown by signs posted warning the people of asbestos.
To this day, lawsuits are still being filed for victims, as well as the land not being able to benefit the people due to the fact that the EPA health guidelines can still not be met. In regards to Waukegan taking a stand, it seems as if the city has failed. Although Johns Manville has been shut down for decades and even demolished, the community as a whole is still being negatively affected. A community's missed opportunity at cleaning up the site so that it could be used in other ways has tainted the legacy of a once proud company.